distract in the devices tree. This is what distract looks like, and I'll show you once it gets off cooldown. And the power cost of it is the same as Sticky Bomb and Taser Pull. Just a minor correction, Intimidation and Decoy also had their power cost reduced, so they cost the same as Sticky, Taser, and Distract, and they are among your cheapest powers to cast. Now the cooldown on Distract is 20 seconds. If you're a controller, that's something that you can take advantage of if you're new, or if you just want to play around with something that's known as a double tick, and I'll get into the double ticking and controlling in another video. But just for demonstration purposes and just to show you an example, I'm going to empty out my power bar a little bit, and what you want to do is hit Sticky Bomb, which is my L2 square, and you're going to clip it with Distract, and then you start the timer. Now again, I'm not going to get too much into how Sticky Bomb works, but you could essentially, I'm going to cast Sticky Bomb here again. Let's say somebody just was picked up and they got up. You could hit Sticky Bomb when you see those blue numbers, and you'll still register a double tick. So I mean, pot itself is not dependent on 20 consecutive seconds. It's based on the appearance of the blue numbers, and again, I'll get into that in another video, but this is how you can use it with Distract as a timer, because blue bar healing is very limited when you're just playing from the tray. I don't recommend that you use this forever. This is something that I recommend if you're just starting out to get used to double ticking, and the reason for that is because Distract has so many other uses. One thing to mention right away before I go into the formula for shield strength: Distract's shield lasts for 5 seconds, and there's two ways that you can tell whether the shield is still active, and that's by, one is popping it, and on the cooldown marker, once it reaches 4 o'clock, that means the shield is it's done. It's no longer up. The other thing is when you pop it, your character will flash white, and you just saw that right now. Although the character is flashing white, that basically means that they're immune to control effects. It can also be indicative of the fact that the shield is still up, assuming that the damage cap has not been met, and I'll talk about that in just a few. But this flashing white here, this is what I was talking about. Now when you flash white, whether it's from Distract, a breakout trinket, you pressing R1, which is your breakout ability, or shift, I think on the PC, I think I said tank's immunity powers, anytime you flash white, that means that you are resistant to control effects, and a majority of the NPCs in this game, this will apply to them. The only NPC that I'm aware of that will still pull you in and control you is Trigon and Unholy Matrimony. That's the only NPC that I can recall that actually ignores this control resistance rule. But all the other NPCs, you will resist their control effects as long as you flash white. Now this makes this power ideal for picking up teammates, for hitting switches, any other objectives to escape. Some NPCs, they deal a damage over time, and every time the damage over time tick occurs, there's kind of a somewhat of a stun, and you're prevented from doing whatever it is that you're doing. So if you hit Distract and the DOT is going, you'll take the damage and it will be absorbed into the shield. However, you will ignore the stun from it, so you'll be able to continue reviving or hitting the switch. Now for shield the other thing too, actually I'll talk about that later. The shield strength is 100% of your resto, 100% of your dom, plus 10, and 10 is the base, meaning that if you had 0 resto, 0 dom, Distract will still absorb 10 damage, and that's it. That's just literally its base for it. Now here on my stats menu, I'll show you my resto is 4523. You add this, because it's 100% resto plus 100 dom with 274, and you add 10, he'll get 4807. That is my shield strength. Now let's say your shield will break under two conditions. And let's say that I'm fighting an NPC. I cast Distract. 2 seconds later, that NPC hits me for 5,000. Right? 5,000 surpasses my 4807. That means that 2 seconds in already, my shield has been destroyed. So my health will start taking the damage. I will no longer mitigate it. So I just blanked out for a sec. Anyway, so once that's done, once the damage cap is met, you'll still continue to flash white, and that flashing white again means that you'll still be resistant to control effects, or most control effects. However, your shield has just been wrecked, so for those last 3 seconds, you have no protection. You'd have to pop a personal dampening field, or another healer may have a shield, or whatever, but your health will start depleting from damage from a target. Now, the other condition is, let's say that NPC didn't hit you for 5,000, let's say it's hitting you for 20. Literally 20, and let's say it hits you 7 times for 20. Obviously, that 140 damage that's dealt to you over 7 seconds, and that's 20 damage per hit, is not going to reach your damage cap of 4807, or my damage cap. That's impossible. What's going to happen is that 5 seconds are going to go by, and because the shield ends at 5 seconds, that means that my health will then start depleting because the 5-second shield is up and I can no longer use it. So your shield will always depend on which one is met first. Either 5 seconds have gone by or your damage cap has been met. Those are the only two conditions for controller shields. Now, the other thing that Distract does is it detaunts. And by that I mean it drops aggro on targets, only on targets that are already locked onto you. Some players, what they'll do is they'll pop Distract and then they'll lunge into a group of NPCs, and what happens is that they will attack you. That's because, again, those NPCs have to be locked onto you. If you pop it and then lunge in there, you're the only target that they're going to start hitting. Let's say there's another NPC that still hit you because you've been raised on the hate table. Now, if you jump in there and let's say you have a pet or that NPC still there, and then you pop Distract, those NPCs will stop briefly for a second, and then they'll go and attack that NPC or another player or a pet or whoever happens to be there. However, if it's just you, literally just you in a mob, or just two ads, you go in there and you pop Distract, those NPCs are going to stop briefly for like about a second, and they'll just go back to attack you, and that's because there is no other target for them to hit. So you have to be smart on how you use Distract. You have to have another target available, then use Distract after they've already, registered you, and then you'll detaunt them. You'll drop their aggro. Now, again, in duos, the other player will then take the damage and all that, but that's how it works in content. So make sure that the targets are literally looking at you and attacking you, whatever, and then hit Distract. And when I say attack, I don't mean like literally, they don't have to hit you, just you should be able to know when they're locked onto you, and most of the time that's indicated by movement towards you. There's also something in this game known as the combat counters. So if I'm blocking and somebody throws a block break, I'll be knocked down. If somebody's blocking and I lunge, I'll get knocked down. And what you can do is you can pop Distract and it'll pick you right back up. The other thing is that in damage stance you have something known as battle display, and this activates power regen. It does not work in controller stance. So if you use battle display and then you use Distract, you'll activate power regen, and it also prolongs battle display. The other thing is, again, that's for restoring power to yourself, only in damage roll, and only to yourself, not to other players. The other thing is that if you use EMP and P dart and you don't want to do, or you're trying to maximize your rotation and you don't want to do 3 powers, especially on NPCs in a corridor with low health, what you can do is hit distract first and then EMP or P dart, and you'll register an AM hit. It's a big burst hit, and I do recommend that you use something like that again in instances with NPCs with low health. If you're damage chasing, I'll probably talk about this in another video, this is definitely ideal over something like intimidation, especially when health pools are very low. I think I covered most of it. I mentioned that you can use distract for revives, for switches, any other objectives. That's why that I recommend that you don't be reliant on distract as your timer for double ticking as a controller forever. Just do it to get an idea of how it functions until you either get some type of clock in your head or use another timer with a beep or something like that. I'll go down here and I'll demonstrate this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop suppressor turret. I just jump canceled it, but I'm going to call out boo. I'm going to pop distract, and the NPC should attack boo. There. Could do the same thing with turret or about sidekick. If there was another player and I pop distract, it would then go and attack them. Now, that's what I'm talking about when I say you want to make sure there's another target. Now, this NPC's attacking me. I pop distract. Right now it's confused by some of the control effects that are occurring by these guys, but right now it's attacking the turret. Now, in most cases, as soon as you pop it, those NPCs, they'll stop briefly and they'll attack whoever's next. However, if you do something, anything that raises you on the hate table, they'll ignore the pets, player, whatever, and they'll come back to you. But this is usually around after the 5 seconds have passed. Like here, I cast it and now it's attacking the turret. So once the 5 seconds have gone by, there might be a chance that this major guard comes back to me there, and you saw it right there perfectly. Now, that's exactly how it plays off in instances. Sometimes, in some cases, they don't even come back to you. They just stay on the pet. Now, here's the AM damage hit I was talking about. That's how you activate it quickly, and that's definitely something that you want to take advantage of in content. I think I covered. Distract doesn't deal any direct damage. It's not offensive at all. It applies no power interactions, and by that I mean no dazing, no electrifying effects.